Okay, it's recording now.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to start, Dr. Lamb, or?
I've got the screen up for you to start on the pacing.
Okay. First of all, welcome to our weekly class. This is week 11, and I hope all of you have had a good week beginning. Just wanted to let you know that it was a pretty intense weekend for Dr. Lamb and me, and I think all of you know we stayed on top of things with your work as it was being submitted. But Dr. Lamb, I went through all 4 classes today, and I looked at, you know, the submitted work and the resubmitted work for the APTEL 1, and I'll be honest with you, after we sent it back, for the most part, they got it.
Yeah, it looked good.
Overall, I was pleased. There's still some that, they've got to, and I want us to just briefly, very briefly, go over the APTEL 1 again, so we can make sure that there's clarity, because even with some that have completed it, they may want to, or think they completed it, they may want to go back and look at it when we tell them exactly how they're going to have to use that in task 2. So they do have an opportunity to go back and tweak it if they need to tweak anything. So, but if you'll move it over a little bit so I can see the green. These are the things that you should be working on this week if you have not done that. And these are the things that Sunday night, by 9 o'clock, that they should be posted into your Blackboard channel. Again, the APTEL Task 1 Zoom conference link is due to the assignment Dropbox, and this is where your Zoom team and you meet and you talk about at least task 1. We said task 1, but then last week, Dr. Lamb and I talked about the fact that as long as you're talking about the APTEL, I don't care. A lot of you have gotten through task 1. You may want to talk about, briefly about that, but, you may want to use and, the other. So just use your time wisely. As long as you are, as the discussion is all about the APTEL, we really are not going to limit you to just talking about a regurgitation of everything that you've done with task 1. Are you okay with that, Dr. Lamb?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then task 1 revisions. Everything that Dr. Lamb and I have sent back, told you to fix, what to do. We should see that this week back in Blackboard so that we can tell you, yes, it's ready to go. And by Sunday, all of you should have submitted that work for your final grade of task 1. And again, remember, you're completing that, finishing that up, and you're working on the review copy of task 2 at the same time, and we're going to go over that tonight. Then your APTEL task 1 peer reviews, and remember, there are 2 of them. They are also due by this Sunday night. Many of you have already started submitting that, so that's a good thing. You don't have to wait until Sunday for any of this. You can go ahead and submit it at any time. And Dr. Lamb and I really like that, not having to wait till Sunday night. And then your APTEL task 2 draft is to be submitted to discussion board. So what you're working on this week with task 2, many of you should have already started on it. We're going to talk about it tonight, but again, the draft of that is due to discussion board, by Sunday night. If you finish it before Sunday night, by all means, get it to us, but don't send it to us unless it's complete work. Don't send partial work to us, and we'll talk about that. Dr. Lamb, in the middle, we're going to talk about in task 2, the needs assessment for the task. The resource is read. Now, this is a pretty detailed resource when you click on it, and it's really the research is a little more comprehensive than what what you need for this, but it explains the explains the process, the gap analysis process, and it gives you examples of things. So, you know, it's 24 pages, but it's not just, there's a lot of graphs and things of that nature in there too. So it's just reading to help you better understand the process. We're going to talk about it, but that will help you better understand it. So Dr. Lamb, with that in mind, if you would, let's look back at task 1, and based on what we saw coming in this weekend, let's just talk briefly about areas that that some need to be aware of, that as they are fixing things that will be resubmitted this week.
Okay.
I will tell you, if you'll do prompt 2, prompt 1, if they'll remember, we got several emails. I don't know where where it came from, but you're doing a literature review on prompt 1. Many of you said, we got emails saying, you know, about an annotated bibliography. We never required an annotated bibliography. We said that that could be in addition to, but that was left up to you. And many of you did that and did an excellent job with that. And overall, Dr. Lamb, I think prompt 1 is probably, with this group, for the ones that chose to do that, probably is the most comprehensive that we have had, you know, with prompt 1. So, you know, it's a literature review with 3 references for each of those 5 areas. That's 15 references. And then many of you did an annotated bibliography in addition to that, and that was perfectly okay. So, okay, Dr. Lamb, prompt 2, if you would explain the 2
All right.
checklist.
Let me talk about prompt 2 from a deadline standpoint. I was talking with Laney today on the phone. When you collect your data for task 2, your walkthrough data, you don't have to have done all of the walkthroughs before you write task 2. Let me remind you, the real thing to do is go to your administrative team and have them go through the checklist and tell you percentage-wise or strength and weakness-wise where your faculty is. You're only doing 3 or 4 walkthroughs. We don't expect from 3 or 4 walkthroughs that you have a good sense of what teachers are doing in classrooms as a group. We know that. Where you get that information, what we're having you do walkthroughs to show you how you do this. And this is how that data is collected. That gives you, that informs your decision about how much and what kind of staff development you're going to need, professional development plan. But you don't have to have done your walkthroughs. You need to schedule 10 or 15 minutes with your school administrative team, sit down, look at the walkthrough instrument and say, all right, you know, let's look at mine right here.
Dr. Lamb, can you mute everybody, Dr. Lamb?
I did.
Okay.
Somebody has unmuted themselves. Let me mute everybody again. All right. If we look at mine here, the walkthrough checklist, whatever checklist you're using, you sit down with your administration and say, what percentage of our teachers are doing similarities and differences? This is what I saw in the couple of classrooms I went in, or if you haven't gotten any in yet, but get a sense of where the faculty is on the items that are in the checklist. That's going to be the basis for your professional development plan. But that comes from your administrative team and all the walkthroughs that they've done. We're having you do 3 or 4 to see how the process works and give you some experience in this is how this data collection works. It's not as easy as you think it is. It's not as cut and dried as you think it is. And that should inform your staff development. Now,
Dr. Lamb,
you did your
they may, you know, based on their administration, they may be able to get a lot of information from them once they interview them or talk with them. You don't know.
That's the whole idea. We're not telling you that doing 3 or 4 walkthroughs but you can generalize that to your entire faculty. That is not correct. We're just doing these 3 or 4 to get you some experience. What you should be doing is going and talking with your administration, looking at that checklist. That's why I said if your district has adopted one, use that one, because that will be the most valid data. When you go and talk with your administration, you won't have to interpolate between their checklist and yours. You'll be able to sit and use theirs and say, all right, tell me how we're doing on all these items as a group, as a faculty. This is how, for real, you develop a professional development plan for a school-wide. Most of you have only ever been involved in developing your own. But when you become an administrator, you've got to develop one for the entire school. And you must get away from this one-size-fits-all. We put everybody through the same thing, the same whole group every year during a work day, and that is not professional development. That's the theory of stupidity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's Dr. Arger's double loop theory, by the way. But that won't work. If you're going to customize professional development, you have to know exactly what you've got to work on, how much, how little. If 90% of your people are doing identifying similarities and differences, you don't need to do whole group on that. You just need to do one-on-one with the 10% idiots you got that don't do that. If it's about 50-50, do it in PLCs. If 10% is all that are doing it, you need whole group. So that's what I'm telling you. You've got to learn how to customize your staff development. Again, read Linda Darling Hammond. She is the expert. She's the guru. She's the first person who came out and said, we're doing staff development completely wrong. We're doing one size fits all, and it ends up being one size fits nobody. We must customize staff development based on data, not just this is a good idea to do this. So that's what we're trying to teach you to do. This is the heart of your instructional improvement plan, is you got to know what your folks do and don't do. Now, when you did your research, you should have found out that efficacy and empowerment in the classroom is different than school leadership. There's empowerment as a school leader, empowerment as a classroom leader. We had you survey for empower. We needed you to come up with a survey in task 1 and a checklist. Some of you came up with one, but not the other. We wanted you to do both. The reason why is this. The checklist is for you to develop the professional development plan. The survey is so that you will hopefully have an aha moment and find out the biggest and worst kept secret in our business. The biggest and worst kept secret in our business is this. If you don't remember anything else I've ever told you, remember this. Schools that reward and celebrate great teachers by making them leaders in their building have a lot of great teachers. Unfortunately, the converse of that is also true. Schools that don't reward great teaching and don't make that the heart of what they do every day and don't reward their best teachers with leadership positions, they pick their friends or go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, guess what? They don't have very many good teachers. We can't pay good teachers more than not good teachers. The way that we inspire and motivate them as transformational leaders, not transactional. We can't give them more money. That's transactional. We can't do that. Transformational leaders inspire and motivate. And the way they do that is by celebrating great teaching. They make those great teachers. They have them teach other teachers. They have them interview. They have them on the budget committee, school improvement. That's the way that they go about making sure that everybody in the building understands that we reward and we prize great teaching. Conversely, if teachers don't get those opportunities, your best ones don't get those opportunities, guess what? You won't have many best ones. That is the worst kept secret in our business, but it's true in every building. And so the reason why we had you do that survey is to get that data back and look at it. And then you should do a comparison. Look here. We got a lot of great teachers doing a lot of great things, and look, they're getting a lot of good opportunities to be leaders. Or if your data says, boy, we got a lot of teachers who aren't doing very good, guess what? You'll find out they're not getting there's no reward system for them either in terms of school leadership opportunities. The two are correlated, I'm telling you. And so if you want to build a culture of teaching and learning, you must identify and work and help your best teachers and get them all to be best teachers and reward them. That's the kernel of truth in the APTEL. That's what we're trying to get you to understand here. This is the heart of your instructional program. This will make or break you as a principal. As I told you last week, if you don't like doing walkthroughs and evaluation, get out now. This is what we do. This is how you will survive. This is how you will thrive in this business, is by producing results. If you're one of those people that says, but I don't think standardized tests, well, don't think. We didn't ask you. That's not what you're good at. That was predetermined before you got in this business, that we have a report card and a scorecard and we do standardized tests. Your job is to make a good number go up or a bad number go down. That's what we do in our business. It's all outcomes based. And the heart of your instructional program, which is the heart of your school, is in this APTEL right here, is in professional development. And not just doing general stuff like we all have had to sit through our whole careers. If I have another day where I had to sit through that all day long idiot getting up whining on some staff development, I could just poke their eyes out. I don't ever want to have to do that ever again. And you should not subject, because it was done to you, don't do it to when you get the opportunity to be a leader, don't do it to others. Customize their staff development, make it relevant. Understand it's about improving in the classroom. It's not about gimmicks. It's not about bringing somebody in from 40 miles or more than 40 miles away. That's the definition of an expert, somebody that drives in from more than 40 miles away. That's not what we do. Take our own power, our own synergy, our own best teachers, and work and improve instruction. Again, as I told you last week, and I'll tell you every time, don't be getting into debates about what we should be teaching. That's above your pay grade. When you get to go to the central office, you get to do that. When you're a school level person, your job is about delivery, about the process, not the content. It's about the process. It's about getting teachers to be more effective in delivering instruction. If you want kids to learn more, you have to teach them more. It's just that simple. Putting them in a uniform won't make them learn more. I've had principals that said, well, we didn't do very well academically last year. We're going to go to uniforms this year. You can't be that stupid. We ought to make you wear a sign and a helmet if you're that dumb. Kids wearing uniforms are just, for improvement. That's just kids behaving badly, dressed similarly. That won't make your test scores go up. Better teaching will make your test scores go up. And you got to work on it. You got to work it every day. It's the heart of what we do every day. And so that's what we're trying to get you to understand through this. This one is not nearly as long as involved as the first one, but it's just as important. This one shouldn't take you as long. Go meet with your administrator for 15 or 20 minutes. Find out what your teachers are doing in terms of those best practices, and design a staff development program that looks kind of like my MTSS for teachers. Design a staff development program that will address the needs that you have. And with the notion being that you should employ your best teachers to teach those other not best teachers, and that will put them on that first rung of becoming a school-wide leader. That we prize, we celebrate great teaching in our building. But it's the most important thing, not what the score was at the ball game Friday night, or that we're running some extracurricular club or something. Yeah, that's all part of it, but we prize great teaching above all else in our building. That's what the APTEL's about.
Dr. Lamb, when you get a chance, will you go back up to task 1, prompt 1 for just a second? I want to show them something.
All right. Dr. Crawford's with us tonight, and he's a sitting principal. He said, it's also good to start with a narrow focus. Look for 1 or 2 things school-wide. For example, my instructional leadership team is looking at student and staff use of academic vocabulary. That is a best practice.
That's right.
That comes into linguistics. That's one of Marzano's. Focus again. If you're doing pretty good throughout, that's what I was talking about. Focus on, I like doing it in PLCs. I like for PLCs to meet at least twice a month, and we take 1 or 2 of those 9 best practices and we focus on those. prompt 1 says gaps in 5 areas should be addressed in narrative form. Please explain. I don't understand that question.
Is
The 5 areas are right here. You speak to those 5 areas that we bullet right there.
Dr. Lamb, that's why.
I've got the 5 areas right here. You speak. What you're attempting to do is figure out the difference between what's supposed to be happening and what is happening. That's the gap.
I was going to say.
And these bullets right here tell you what's supposed to be happening. You research these areas and find out, oh, this is what's supposed to be happening. Now I'm going to collect this data to find out what's really happening. That's where the gap is. That's your gap analysis. Let me say that again. You look at these 5 areas, you read about them, you do your research, and you say, oh, that's what we're supposed to be doing. Now we're going to go use this survey and this walkthrough to see what's actually happening, and we'll address those gaps in our professional growth plan. That's how it works. One more time. We look at these 5 areas of research. We find out this is what it's supposed to look like. We use these instruments to find out what it really looks like. We use this professional growth model to try to close the gap between what should be and what is. That's what a professional growth model or a staff development model does. It moves the real closer to the ideal, what it's supposed to look like. That's what a professional growth plan is. Now, I know some of you think it's just to punish you, but no, it's not supposed to be for punishment or just something that you have to do. It's supposed to move the real closer to the ideal. That's the whole, that's it right there. So that gap analysis and plan for that is a 3-step process. Task 1, 2, and 3. Pretty simple. Then you write out your plan. Graph it out in your graphic organizer, and you're done. Then you just write your competencies like you did before. You know how to do that. So that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're figuring out what it's supposed to look like, determine what it really looks like, and you're planning to try to make the two get closer together. Can't be any simpler than that. So I said, this one is not, you're making this one too hard. This one is not nearly as in-depth or long or as involved as the first one. You're just taking the ideal and converting and looking at the real and trying to move the real closer to the ideal. That's what we do in this business. That is the essence of what we're doing. To Dr. Crawford's point, I actually was with him Friday. I went and saw him. To Dr. Crawford's point, I like to do a faculty focus on 1 or 2 best practices every semester in PLCs. You know, we're not doing very well with non-linguistic representation, as he was talking about wanting to do vocabulary. We're not very good at that as a school. Let's make that. We'll do that in PLCs this semester. Every other week when you come to PLC, you bring an example of what you did in classroom for that, and we'll share ideas. That's what he's talking about. That's that 50-50 when you're not, or when you're at least half your faculty's not doing real well in one of these areas, you focus on it in PLCs. You don't just do a whole group seminar about it again. You focus on it in PLC and you share ideas and you share examples of it. That's that PLC part. Remember, there's three kinds of staff development that I want to see in your plan: whole group, small group, PLC, where you're working on the individual 1 or 2, or one-on-one when you're working basically with your low performers or your new people. Who are your low performers? That's what we're talking about here. Customize your professional development. Don't just make it we go sit in the cafeteria or the auditorium all day on a work day. Just shoot me now if I had to go through that ever again. All right. Yeah, one's a survey, one's a checklist. One's a survey, one's a checklist. Right here, 2 examples. Here's one and here's one. And you can take one of them, make a survey just like I did here. Survey, see that checklist turned into a survey. That one turned into a walkthrough observation form. That's how they're using, that's how you take them from the theoretical to the real there, to the practical. You take these two checklists and then one becomes a survey, the other becomes a checklist. Why can't we do a survey for best practices? Because teachers won't lie to you. That's why. They'll tell you that they're all the best that there's ever been. It's just like kids. They're all gifted. If you don't believe it, just ask their mamas. Same way with teachers. They're all the very best. If you don't believe it, just ask them. But you got to go and see what's happening. Trust but verify, I guess, that's a good one for election day. That's an oldie but goodie. Trust but verify. But the idea is not to a gotcha. The idea is to improve instruction, and that's going to be a constant. That's going to be a constant. That's a continuous improvement model. Is you're always going to be trying to improve instruction because outcomes matter. If you don't like that, you're in the wrong business because outcomes matter. And so if the scores didn't matter, we wouldn't keep them. And everybody, I'd like to see us get to a growth model where we don't use comparative accountability, but we're not that good of people. We just aren't. I wish we were. I wish that we were good enough people that we only looked at kids' potential but we can't be that way. We have to have somebody to beat. We're a competitive bunch. And so as long as they keep score, you better work on yours or somebody else will. It'll be a new ox. What if we were part of a system that has top-down control? That doesn't stop you from making a plan. Do we need 3 sources for best practices like in prompt 1? Yeah, we talked about that. You need 3 for each of those 5, so that's a total of 15.
Dr. Lamb,
I understand what Sabrina's question. I understand that, but top-down PD doesn't work. We know that. I mean, you can do those whole group sessions on top-down, but your real work's done in PLCs and one-on-one. That top-down, somebody coming out and doing all day, that gets very little results. If you want to move the needle academically, you got to do that work in PLCs and one-on-one. It's just the way it goes.
Dr. Lamb, they don't need 3 resources in task 2. If they'll go back to task 1, prompt 1 and task 1, that was where they did the literature review.
Well, that's what they were asking.
Right. And if they go to task 2, they'll see the same 5 areas again. This is where you're referring back to the research you've done. The research says in task 1, this is what should be happening. When you do whatever you do in task 2, then this is, the research says this is what's happening. And each of those areas, you're going to discuss it in task 2 based on the research says this, but this is actually what is happening at my school.
Okay.
In those 5 areas. So you don't have to go back and do 3 more references. The research's been done. You are just looking at those 5 areas again based on what the research says and what is actually happening in your school.
Okay. Dr. Crawford, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'd like for you to chime in. Now, Dr. Crawford is an experienced sitting principal in High Point. He's at a Title I school, and he is getting excellent results at that school. I'm putting him kind of on the spot here. This is completely unplanned. I'd like for you to weigh in. I'm going to put on the screen. I've got to go back and move some things out of the way. Let me see. I'm going to put on the screen Let me see. I'm in the wrong place. There it is. This document that I shared with the class, this MTSS for teachers.
Mhm.
And what I've got in this is what you're talking about. PLC work on the lowest of the 9 high yield strategies. You've identified in your school, y'all need to work on vocabulary. That's what we're talking about here. PLC work on individual strategies that you feel like are weakest in your building. Best practices, high yield strategies, that's the same thing, that are weakest in your building. Tell us how you go about doing that in your building, the actual operational piece of it.
Sure. So this year, the school district initiated in all schools what we call instructional leadership teams. The idea not only is to increase more contact time with teacher coaching, but also include teachers in that process. So in addition to my curriculum facilitator, and this year I hired a math impact coach, I've identified 7 teachers that serve on that team. And so we then use the new leaders model. So I had to teach them how to do what we call low inference notes or observations of classrooms. So I had to spend some time teaching them that. And basically that looks like you go into a classroom and instead of using your teacher brain where you really make a lot more assumptions than you might think you would, you go in and you focus on exactly what the teacher does and says and exactly what the students do or say. And you'll find pretty interesting what does and what doesn't happen in a classroom. Now, there are any number of things you can focus in on in a classroom. And I mean, even as a principal in my 15th, 16th year now as a middle level principal, even I have to narrow my focus when you've got many things that you're working on. So right now we are just focusing on the use of academic vocabulary. Mm-hmm. My team actually conducted their first building-wide walkthroughs last week. And I have to tell you, these teachers were they were surprised. Not only because they immediately went into, oh my God, this is what I need to do in my classroom, but they were surprised at hearing or not hearing, things that they assumed they were seeing with their colleagues. So it's generating some really, really good conversation in the building.
Good. And I hope you heard what Dr. Crawford just said. Doing walkthroughs is a lot harder than you think it is because you assume too much. You have to train and practice. That's what I was trying to tell you. We want you to do 3 or 4, but that's why I put that EDCU 250 folder in there for you to get some practice scripting and looking at these lessons, because doing these quick walkthroughs, you assume too much. You've got to really focus, and it's something you've got to practice and you've got to be trained in. It's harder to do than you think it is. But the notion here is they're using walkthrough data to inform their PLC work, what they need to be working on in their PLCs, which of course is vocabulary. This is what principals do, folks. You collect data. And it's not easy to collect. It's harder to do this than you think it is. You collect data in the aggregate, and then you try to work on that in small groups in PLCs to get better at it. But you got to have some data that says you're doing this or you're not doing that. You can't just say, well, your kids aren't doing well on tests. What are we going to do? Well, this is how you figure out this is what we're going to do. You've got to go in those rooms, and it's not easy. And you got to go in there, and you got to identify your best teachers. Dr. Crawford has rewarded 7 of his teachers by being on this team. I'll bet they're his best 7. That's the whole point. Again, he's rewarding his best teachers, putting them in the room, seeing what is and isn't going on, and then they're working on those individual best practices in PLCs. That's the heart of PLC work. That's how it's done. Now, out of that, I'll guarantee you, when they go into somebody's room and 2 or 3 go in there and it's really bad, they'll be doing some one-on-one out of that as well, I'm guessing. Because that's the way you find out who needs to have one-on-one as well. You can't wait till the end of the year and they come up with bad test scores and say, dang, I wish I went in that room more and helped them. Yeah. That's the chronic reply of the unemployed in our business. I wish I'd have known that. Maybe they wouldn't have fired me. This is how you know that. This is what you do. This is the heart of what you do every day as an instructional leader. You got to get in those rooms, not just to collect that data, but then that data must inform your professional development, what you do. You must do something about that data. And that something is a professional development plan, where you then work with those people on one-on-one, or you then work in PLC, small groups. Or you then do some whole group with your people to get them to go from the real closer to the ideal again. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to move where we are to where we think we need to be or where we should be. That's what they pay you to do as a principal, to move your school, to make a good score go up. Something that's good, or a bad score go down. A good score is an academic score. A bad score is a discipline score. You want discipline referrals and suspensions to go down. You want test scores to go up. They're correlated as well. Now, don't be dumb and think, well, if we just make kids behave better, they'll learn more. No, they won't. They'll only learn more if you teach them more. What you'll find is if you improve your instruction, your discipline will improve, not vice versa. I know that's hard to believe. Dr. Crawford?
Yeah, I saw that you posted the MTSS document. Do all the students know that the state is mandating the full RTI process by 2020?
Yes.
Okay.
By 2020. Charlotte Mecklenburg's been doing it now for what, 7 years, 6 years? I did Ray Giovanelli's. I did his audit. 3 or 4 years ago, and he'd been in it for 3 years at Washington. So, some districts have been doing it. We were working on RTI in Goldsboro back when we were still at the old high school. That was in 2011. Some districts have been working on this but everybody's going to be everybody's going to be running MTSS and RTI across the board in another 2 years, even for those of you who haven't adopted yet. That's correct. Yeah. We'll talk about that more in depth next semester in law and finance. But yes, that's one of those state mandates. That's the policy. And so that's why I'm preaching this sermon now. Thank you for that intro, Dr. Crawford. That's why I'm preaching this sermon now, folks. If you're not doing it now, in 2 years, you will be doing this every day, all day. The state is mandating that this is what you will do. This is not optional anymore. And that's why we have changed what we do in our program to fit what the state says that's coming down the pipe. I was at Pell on Friday. I had collaborative partners meeting on Tuesday. What that means is at some point every month, I'm at some meeting or I'm in some partners meeting, something virtual, to try to inform and stay ahead on what we should be training you to do. I was with Dr. Oxendine, who's on the state board, last Friday, talking with her about clinical experiences. What should we be doing? What should our interns be doing to prepare for jobs and to make sure that we're relevant? But the whole notion here, as Dr. Crawford just pointed out, is RTI is a state mandate. It's going to be fully implemented for everybody by 2020. And this is it. This is what we're talking about here. RTI is lessons for students, but this is how it works. This model here is how it works. This model is for teachers, but the student model is similar to this. But this is the heart of what makes the student model work. If you don't have this in place, RTI and MTSS won't work for you. if you don't have it in for your staff. So in my opinion, you got to start doing this if you're going to have them do that. And that's the whole notion here. This is now the corner of the realm. This is how we administrate every day. This is what we do. And if you don't understand that, if you can't do that, if you don't want to do that, this job is not for you. It's about collecting data and acting upon that data to improve instruction in a continuous improvement loop. And RTI and MTSS are just extensions of that, from the teachers to the students. But it starts with you in leadership roles, and you put teachers through that process, and then they put students through that process. And it works the same for both of them. It's a continuous improvement model. That's how it goes. It's completely different than the way I was trained 35 years ago. And there's been different models that come along the way, but this one is here to stay. This is how we're going to do business. We call them high yield strategies and best practices because that's exactly what they are. There were some people maybe 15 years ago that thought accountability was going to go away, that we weren't going to put so much emphasis on test scores. Those people were wrong. We're putting just as much emphasis on test scores now as we ever have or more. They're not going away. Outcomes matter. This is how we do business. All right, let me catch up on a couple of questions. Where'd you go? Here we go. Guilford's been working on this a couple years now. Guilford is way behind. Yeah, that's right. They are behind. CMS has been on this for, I know, 7 years. And they've been fully implemented now for either 3 or 4. I went and did the one at Washam. I did their audit. So I know, and they've been doing it for 3 years at that time. So, yeah, either you get on the bus or you get run over by it. It's kind of the way it works. And so, there's a lot of buses in these scenarios. I'd rather ride one than get run over by one. So, okay, get on the bus. This is the way we do business. Back to you, Dr. Stedman.
I think we've covered everything. They know what they've got to do. I would encourage them to also, we showed them what was due this week, but I would tell them at this point to go ahead and click on week 12, and you need to go ahead and look at and pace yourself and map it out, because it's all coming to a closure fast.
Yeah, so, it gets really quick this time of year. I mean, it's going to be Thanksgiving in another 2 weeks. Right.
And we've got them to a place by next week when we meet with them. They'll have a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving week. They have that week to work and do as they need to do. And when we come back after Thanksgiving, then it's pretty much downhill after that.
So you will have the week of Thanksgiving off from us to catch up, do what you need to do, get where you can. Again, let me be clear here. You don't have to have done your walkthroughs in order to complete task 2, but you do have to have sat down with your school administration, looked at the walkthrough instrument and said, all right, tell me on these individual strategies on this walk list, what percentage, where are we on these? Do we need to do whole group? Do we need to do PLC, or do we need to do one-on-one? And basically the numbers are like 90, 50, 10. If 90% of teachers are doing it, you just need to work one-on-one with the ones who aren't. And when you're developing your school-wide professional development plan, if it's about 50-50, work on it in PLCs. If only 10% have adopted, you better start in whole group, and then you can move to PLCs down to one-on-one. But if 90% of your teachers are doing something, don't put them all through whole group. Don't make them all. Don't punish the many for the sins of the few. That's kind of like somebody comes in late and you get on the loudspeaker and chastise everybody about coming to school late. How stupid is that? Talk to the person that came to school late. Don't put a note up on the mailboxes or get on the loudspeaker and be stupid. Direct the correction to where it needs to be. That's what you do with a staff development or a professional development plan. You develop the resources and the time and the energy to where it needs to be.
Dr. Lamb, and if they would remember, in task 1 again, this is what the research says. In task 2, this is actually what is happening at my school. You're discovering that. And in task 3, what you gonna do about it? How you gonna fix the problem?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it.
Somebody asked about the survey. No, the survey doesn't have to be done to do tasks. The only thing that has to really be done, it'd be good if you start. I mean, the survey is just a Google Doc or a Survey Monkey. You should have it done. But the main thing there is I'd like for you to have it done. It's not imperative that you have it done. The main thing in task 2 is figuring out what's going on in your classrooms with best practices so that you can start your plan. But you got to talk to your faculty about that. But yeah, you should be able to have your survey done since it's just a quick and dirt. All right, so let's look at, somebody asked about what to do the week after Thanksgiving by the 27th. You're supposed to be about ready to submit because you've only got after that you've only got a little over a week after that one.
Dr. Lamb, I think they asked what was due the week of Thanksgiving. If they go to week 13, it will tell you there's no Zoom session, but it will tell you exactly what is due that Sunday night. They still have work to turn in that Sunday night.
But this is your chance to catch up. Nothing new that week. Don't have to come on and listen to me rant and rave. But it's important that you get this. We're trying to change your lens here. And what that means is we're trying to get you to look at this from an administrator's point of view rather than a teacher's point of view from the other side of the table to understand this problem. We need for you to be a little more global, a little more holistic in your thinking here. But I like what Dr. Stedman said. What are you going to do about it? You know that Dale's not a very good teacher. What are you going to do about it? Just going to live with it, or are you going to try to work? Can't fire everybody. There's not people knocking. The thing about it is there's not people knocking the door down to work in high risk schools, especially. While I've been known to get me a new ox every now and then, that's not always the solution. You can't fire them all. Sometimes you want to, but really your job is to inspire and motivate and try to improve what you got. There may be some that just can't be improved, and that's you may have to get you a new ox or two, but you can't. That can't be your only solution. You need to lead these people through instructional improvement, not just tell them improve or else. You need to be able to tell them how to improve and lead that improvement. You heard Dr. Crawford say he's leading that team. He's going in that room. He's a servant leader. He's right there with them. That's why I invited him to come and join us, because I know what kind of principal he is. I've seen him. I've observed him. That's the kind of principal he is. He understands you don't come in and sit in your office every day. You're out leading the troops. You're on the front line with them. You don't ask them to do anything that you won't do. The days of coming in and putting your feet up on the desk and being the boss man, those days are over. That's not how you get continuous improvement in school. You're right there with them, shouldering the load. That's how it's done. There's nothing more rewarding than that when the results come through, when you see the smile on those children's faces when they start to get it, and when they start to achieve and they start to grow and mature, and when things turn out well for your community, it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. No substitute for it.
Dr. Lamb, the question about what was due the weekend of Thanksgiving weekend, again, they can see it there. We're going to talk about that next week. I'm not going to go over it because I don't want to confuse what we've already talked about that's due this week, and it will overemphasize some things. So it's there. You need to look at it, and we will discuss that more in detail next week.
All right. So we coming on this Thursday? Are we good?
I think they're okay.
All right. We'll come on next Tuesday then. Now, you know, we can always come on Thursday. You can have me rant for another night. But if not, everybody said thank you, Dr. Crawford, for your time.
Yes.
We do appreciate it.
Dr. Lamb, do you think we need to come on Thursday?
No, I don't.
I don't either. I think we need to give them the time to work on what needs to be
Time
worked
to
on.
work now. Now, we have classmates who don't all, just like tonight, we've got about 40 with us tonight. So that means there's probably another, 25 that aren't with us?
Right.
You need to share this information with them. And when you see their work turned in and you don't see the things represented, when you do those I was saying, saw a peer review this afternoon, and I was so happy. It said, remember, Dr. Lamb said to do this and not that. I was like, there you go. That's part of the reason why we have you do peer reviews. Everybody doesn't come on and everybody doesn't get the word. I don't think everybody's watching the videos. And so when somebody on your peer reviewing doesn't get it right, you need to point that out to them. Hey, you forgot to do this or you didn't do that. And I was glad to see that today. I didn't see a lot of that in the app cell. I am starting to see that now, that you know that you've unpacked the rubric and you know what's supposed to be in there. So encourage your colleagues. Tell them, if you're not going to come online and listen to that old man rant, at least watch the videos and you fast forward through it. Understand what we're doing here. You're not, make sure that you get the essence of what we're trying to teach you here, or we're trying to get you to learn. But this is new and relevant stuff. We're not training you to work in schools from when we were there. We're training you to work in schools of now and tomorrow. This is how it's done now. We have a person here sitting here with us tonight, taking his time, sitting here with us. That's a sitting principal right now. This is his life. This is what he does. And so you need to know that this is the job. All right, one last question here before we go. All right, I think we're good.
And thank you too, Dr. Crawford. You're teaching me a lot, not being in the school building now. We really appreciate having those fresh ideas with us.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're glad to have you. This is a time when you can really contribute a lot to us, things that we need to know and be reminded of. All right, that's the alarm went off.
Okay. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.